We saw that coming over the past 2, 3 years simply due to the massive dominance of China. We looked at all the statistics, and you can go back a couple of years and put them out, and it was always that China had 80, 90% of all the global supply for batteries and a lot of the related technologies just within their control. As much as the Western countries try to invest in capacity and technology, the best that we could do is kind of gain 10% over the next 5 years in terms of that market share.
Welcome to the Blue Ocean Solutions podcast, where we dive into real conversations with business owners, innovators, and industry leaders shaping the future of clean tech, construction, and the renewable energy sector. I'm Kreel Hutchinson, your host. Our guest today is Thomas Becker, the CEO of Pulsar Industries in the Austin, Texas area. We discuss his journey from automotive industry to leading a rapidly growing U.S. clean tech manufacturer and how Pulsar Industries is powering the future of residential solar with innovative American-made technology. If you're a renewable energy entrepreneur, a manufacturing leader, or an investor interested in U.S. tech innovation, you will love this show. Thomas shares his invaluable insights into scaling a cutting-edge manufacturing business, navigating the complexities of domestic production, and building strategic partnerships in a high-growth industry. It's an example of how strategic vision and a commitment to domestic manufacturing can create a significant impact in the clean energy revolution. Welcome to the podcast, Thomas.
Thanks for having me, Kreel. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I was very much looking forward to this conversation. For my audience who may not be familiar with you or Pulsar Industries, why don't you introduce yourself, explain your role, what you're up to, and a little bit of your background?
Of course. So I'll try to keep it short. Thomas Becker, I'm CEO of Pulsar Industries, as you now well know, and we are here in the north of Austin in our manufacturing facility, just like pretty much an hour from the airport, which we all chose by intent, but we're going to get to that a little bit later. I spent most of my career in the electronics and automotive manufacturing area. Started off in the logistics area, then did a lot of SAP and ERP projects, and eventually moved to operations management, then into finance, and that culminated to my automotive global experience. I spent a decent amount of my time in China, so that was very, very enlightening, very interesting. And eventually got hired to a German battery manufacturer in Austin, which in 2023 we were able to acquire the North American business from and turn it into what Pulsar Industries is today.
Fantastic. Tell us a little bit more about Pulsar Industries. What are the size you're at? Okay, from 2023 to where you are now, and I know you're on the verge of some rapid expansion, but tell us what's happened over those couple of years.
Yes, very interesting. The first step that we took after restructuring the business was we launched a consulting, applying basically our technology know-how on the battery side with our manufacturing know-how from the automotive industry. Because what we saw is basically that you get either one side or the other, but we applying those technologies and those process understandings together to create a lasting quality product focused on continuous price and process improvement did not exist. So that then combined with the upcoming demand for domestic manufacturing was what really prompted us to seek out customers that were looking to set up manufacturing operations in America and really bring those manufacturing jobs back home and have that technology know-how really as well within our borders. And that's why we started initially with the consulting. And after the administration change and really the very strong push against any Chinese control and for domestic manufacturing, we decided beginning of last year that this is the right time to open our own manufacturing again. And eventually, we will end it here a little bit north of Austin.
So obviously that's a strategic decision to do all US based manufacturing, which would have some, I would say, positive and negative trends and tailwinds to them. So tell us a little bit about why that was such an important detail for you to do and what has supported that in the larger marketplace to be the right move.
So we saw the last administration already addressing the battery dominance of China through tariffs, which some were implemented immediately and some were actually just kicked in the beginning of this year. And we saw then the upcoming tariffs that the new administration would impose as the need for the US economy to have that domestic capability themselves. And we saw that coming over the past 2, 3 years simply due to the massive dominance of China. We looked at all the statistics and you can go back a couple of years and put them out, and it was always that China had 80, 90% of all the global supply for batteries and a lot of the related technologies just within their control. As much as the Western countries try to invest in capacity and technology, the best that we could do is kind of gain 10% over the next 5 years in terms of that market share. And that really pointed towards a potential clash because of that dominance and especially their massive development of automotive capabilities. And when I worked in China for 4.5 years, we saw their engineering prowess really increase from pure copy and paste to innovation. And that was pretty much 10 years ago, where for them they pivoted from just copying to actually developing or out developing us, especially in the EV sector. They understood that they will never be as good as the Westerns in building combustion cars. They will not. But they saw a huge opportunity in the electric vehicles, which are massively less complicated. Right? There's, I think, a factor of 1 to 8 in terms of parts that go into an electric vehicle that goes into a combustion car. So that was really the big push where we saw that overall the Western countries need to have some sort of defense mechanism and look for those domestic capabilities, which at that point we decided was exactly the right moment to start.
Well, you come from a very unique position because you had that experience in China for 4.5 years. So you have a unique insight into the competition and what's happening overseas and how that will influence this. So I'm sure your assessment is correct that it's good timing, and especially with the new administration and the real support that they have for US manufacturing. So as we dive into Pulsar, can you explain to the audience exactly what products you're bringing to the marketplace? What does the manufacturing center focus on?
So we focus on two product lines, which is on one side, we will do battery pack assembly and we will do inverter assembly of a product where we own 100% of the IP. On the battery side, we own 50% of the IP, and unfortunately, for the time being, we will rely on cells that are made in China simply because there is no other alternative at this point at a commercial scale, which allows us to be price competitive. So while learning that technology, we have a couple of partners stateside that we seek to partner with in the long term to establish that, but that will take years to develop. So for the time being, it's really about understanding and controlling the technology that we deploy and controlling and further developing the engineering side of a 12 kilowatt off-grid inverter. Producing those two parts allow our third production line, which is a mobile battery storage solution, to be very price competitive because basically the batteries and the inverters that we assemble, we sell to the residential solar market at a higher volume. And that allows us to have those parts at a very attractive cost implemented into our own mobile BSS solution, which we will develop in 3 different sizes: a 40 kilowatt hour trailer, a 100 kilowatt hour trailer, and then the large unit. We haven't started development yet. It will happen in Q2, somewhere between 200 and 250 kilowatt hours.
Amazing. And then what is the focus of the manufacturing? Because I know in our initial conversation, you had mentioned a strategy of going with like smaller, replicable, repeatable manufacturing locations. How does that fit into your business concept?
So those three production lines, they fit into our 12,000 square foot facility here in the north of Austin. Overall, many automotive grade factories or electronic factories, they would scratch their head and say, what do you want? What do you want to do with 12,000 square foot? But that's exactly our point. We want a smaller, almost like family-like enterprise that allows us to control fluctuation in the team and to not overburden the available resources in the talent pool that we have in our surroundings. We always have the joke, and for you it's a repetition, but you walk a block in China, you find 150 experienced assemblers, from quality engineers to logistics to manufacturing engineers and line leaders. Here you walk a block and you find 5 or 10, and half of them don't show up the next day. So your potential to find skilled workers is limited. So subsequently, we said it's really going to be a challenge to have a factory that requires 2, 3, 4, 500 people. It'll be a constant battle for resources. Let's take a different approach and have a small footprint where we, again, can create a lot of loyalty by keeping the teams small with a lot of potential for development. And once we are full with this factory, we go to a different town, be it in South Carolina, Illinois, Ohio, or Tennessee. Doesn't matter. It basically then really depends on where the customer or the market pulls us. And then again, kind of that 45-minute hour radius around the major city where we can find already lower rent, lower labor rates, but still have access to a couple of engineers from the city. So that's where we found kind of that sweet spot, and it helps us to reduce the cluster risk that if we have a big snowstorm in Texas, the other facilities are still running and we don't have, all of our eggs in one basket that we constantly need to fill. And that's as well part of the automotive experience that you have. Once a project runs out, you're always behind the eight ball in trying to figure out what's the next project we need to fill the facility to be profitable. If you have a small facility, the project runs out and you time it wise, you can close it and move to the next location. Worst case scenario.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do see the advantage of it because I've spoken to many, manufacturers and even people involved in the data center. And this idea of maybe about decentralized organizations where you're not, gives you a little bit more resilience, maybe a
Mhm.
little bit more flexibility. If the grid goes down somewhere, you're not completely taken off kind of idea. So it does make sense. How do you envision AI and automation playing a role in maybe standardizing the processes and maintaining quality across these distributed facilities as you expand?
So the first stepping stone that we did is we implemented NetSuite. Many may think, Thomas, right now you're 20 people facility. What do you need NetSuite for? But that's exactly the point. Once we have this facility filled with 2 shifts running, at least 5 days a week, we'll be around 60 people. But then that scalability comes from standardization, as you very well said. That standardization for us means access to data that we can then leverage through AI, through automation, in order to stay efficient. So overall, looking at exactly those process automations in the first step, starting from AP and AR management. Everything should be computer read. Nobody should start typing anything in. Let's eliminate paper where we can. All those features are available within NetSuite and can really increase efficiency for our team. Once we have that amount of data available as well from our manufacturing facility, that's then where AI can come in and create and identify and create opportunities for further cost savings through process step reduction, through identification of waste or overhead where we might not see it. And I strongly believe that where we will be excelling is applying that in a new way, not necessarily just the pure automation of processes on the shop floor, but to really figure out where that makes most sense and have AI guiding us how to design the next assembly line in the most effective way. The volumes that we target are in the tens of thousands of units annually. So having fully automated lines is probably not a smart decision for us on the financial side, because you tie yourself into one product that needs to run for years and years, which our industry is not. It will not happen there, because you have so many frequent changes on the sell side that there's always going to be something that's a no, we need now this and that different, which for a full automated line is massive cost. So that's, I think, where we will leverage robots, AI robots, and automation. Yes.
Perfect. Yeah, it makes sense that that would be a big part of, especially at this, you're not a startup company, you're obviously well into your business, but you're not locked into old manufacturing practices. You can pivot a little bit more and really adopt these new technologies as they arise and push things forward. So future proofing your business right now. As you move into the marketplace, we had talked about you moving in, really scaling through 2026. Can you explain to our audience what's really working well for Pulsar Industries these days?
The thing that works best for us right now is our corporate culture. And that is something that my wife is building. She's a big, big part of the company. And we decided early on that for us, Pulsar is not just about sales and revenue and bottom line. It's about creating a little bit more than just business. We want to have people working with us that enjoy coming to work, that don't have to drag themselves every single day and just to deliver the bare bottom of what it is that they can do. We believe that when people are motivated, they feel valued and appreciated, they thrive and they give 130% because it's possible. It doesn't cost them, it doesn't tire them. It's because they're motivated. And that's the type of culture we really want to build. Sure, at the end of the day, yes, we need to make money, but we always say, I prefer earning $5 less and have a happy team. And I don't have to worry about half of the company leaving tomorrow if they get, $5 more across the street. But, really that family-like environment where you come in, pretty much everybody, and you just have a good time doing something great together. That's what we see from suppliers, from customers, from interviews, from Chamber of Commerce people, from everybody that we engage with, and they get a glimpse of that. They take a second and they acknowledge that, and that for us makes a really, really big difference, right? Because if you have partners that they're not just all about the money, business becomes easy.
Mm-hmm. I think it also really aligns with the vision of, returning U.S. manufacturing back into the country, not as a way just to generate jobs, but to generate culture, right?
Yes.
Because when all of those jobs left, yes, there was jobs that left, but there was also a cultural void that occurred too. So I think aligning both the employment with culture and making healthy work environments is an excellent recipe for long-term success. So that's what's working good. What's the challenges or the bottlenecks that you're facing inside your business?
So it's basically on two fronts right now. Thankfully, the past couple of weeks were a little bit better, but last year was very challenging on the regulatory side because things changed very, very frequently. It was not predictable about, how would be the tariff situation be tomorrow. Sometimes there were hourly changes that obviously make taking decisions very difficult, and positioning yourself in how much do we focus on a certain technology or product or component rather than, okay, now the whole business falls apart. So that right now, with the passing of the big beautiful bill, has steadied the waters for us so far. We expect that there will be a couple of turbulences throughout 26, but not to the degree we saw last year. So that we're kind of on the out of that. On the other hand, the stage that we are in, we're launching 3 products. We come from just out of the startup phase into production. Cash flow is a tricky topic. And as one of our friends and advisors said, Thomas, when you don't have money, nobody wants to give you money. When you have money, everybody wants to lend you money because they know they get their return. It's just a phase you have to get through. We're getting through. We're financed throughout the next couple of months, but we could do a little bit more if we just had a little bit more caution. But that's this point, it's just the game that we have to play. And so far, so good. We don't anticipate any major hiccups, but it's always a challenge to go from that 1 to 10 phase. The 0 to 1, you develop a product, you build one, and it's great. But now you have to buy material for 10, and you have to get people for 10 units. Then once that is done, then you scale to 100, to 1,000. Yeah, it's a challenge, but it's an exciting challenge at this point.
Yeah, it's what's the spot that every business wants to be involved with, right? To get off the ground and then to figure out how to scale it. So, talking about revenue and growth, let's talk about, as a manufacturer, obviously your customers are going to be partnerships, distributors.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit more about who your ideal customer profile is? Like, who are you looking forward to partner with to take Pulsar to the next level and be able to scale in 2026?
So our ideal customer is national distributors that work in the equipment industry, that work in the solar, in the residential area, and in the commercial solar world. So we always think in terms of container loads rather than in package projects. So it is the larger companies that we're looking for to partner. We have one exciting partnership with a national brand that produces generators that actually is teaming up with us to launch our battery or mobile battery as their product. And we shared a trade show with them, which was very exciting to see that this really caused a lot of commotion for people to see a mobile battery that is not a generator in that industry. So that is the ideal customer type. And again, it is really customers that we can establish a certain level of trust. Where a handshake deal still counts, and people don't look for the first way to get another $5 out of you.
Right. And so are these partnerships, are you white labeling the manufacturing, then they put on their brand and take it to the marketplace as that type of partnership?
Correct. So
Okay.
while we love the Pulsar brand, we're not tied to it. So we're very willing to work and develop those products with our customers who in turn have exactly that market access and that feedback to us to say, it's a great product, but you need to change one, two, three things in order to make the customer, 100%.
Great. As you then focus on growth and bringing more partnerships to Pulsar this year, what's your strategies for finding them, developing those relationships, doing your lead generation to have as many conversations as possible that would fit into your ideal partnership?
So we do the traditional trade shows, right? And we thought long and hard about whether this is the right strategy, but it still is, especially in more traditional industries like power generation. That's where the people meet. Everybody kind of knows everyone, and those circles, that's exactly they enjoy to meet once a year there and exchange, and then everybody goes about their business. So it is really those traditional events where you meet exactly the type of customers you're looking for. On the other hand, we look for experienced sales reps that have spent 20 years in the industry looking for or cultivating those relationships, and simply offer them a little bit different work environment, less stress on, hey, you need to hit your sales targets, more of a let's all work in the same direction, support each other. And if that's what, those people are looking for, a lot of them are, in their late 50s, early 60s. And they say, you know what, I want to take a little bit step back. And we just love the wealth of experience that these people bring to our team and really help us to bridge the gap of knowledge that we are just starting to acquire here. And yeah, in par, or on the other hand, we have a couple of young sales guys that just pair perfectly. They can absorb all that experience and then drive on those jointly developed relationships. So that combination,
Perfect.
trade shows and experiences is really good.
Okay, great. And as as the audience gets a more familiar with your company, give us a little bit of an insight of the actual size of it. So you're talking about a sales team, you have you'll have a manufacturing team on the floor, maybe there's a marketing team. Can you give us numbers of what does the size look like spread across those different verticals?
Sure. So our sales team currently we have 5 people. 3 of them are stateside. We have one in Mexico and one in India. Our marketing teams is another 7 people. They are all located in India, actually, doing a phenomenal job on social media and graphics design. On the shop floor, we have 11 people today, combined shop floor and warehouse for the first production line that we launched. That's where we will see as well the scale of people down the road. And in the office, we are 7, pretty give or take. Plus, we have a couple of contracted people, especially on the engineering side, that we do project work with until we really have that continuous workload for them to bring them on board full time.
And as you think about strategic priorities moving into the next 6 to 12 months, what does that look like for you and your team?
The first major priority is process control and quality. So really defining, documenting our assembly processes as by Q3, we want to have our pre-audit for the ISO 9001 certification. So putting all that quality management system together is really the first and foremost priority. Second is to create that assembly team that really can push quality, can push product, and achieves the target in terms of output. And third is to enjoy what we do.
Hey, I like that. Of course. So, if you had a magic wand and you could wave this wand and kind of fix or automate or remove one obstacle, one challenge that you see is in front of you that could really unlock, a smooth delivery of your business, what would that be?
I think if I could, it would be really the automation of all paper and administrative processes. The moment you get a receipt that you have to put into the system, you're already wasting time that could be done because all those documents exist electronically. We're just not there yet where everything kind of fit neatly together and gets imported automatically. So that would be my magic one.
Spoken like a true CEO who understands where time gets wasted with paperwork.
Yeah.
As we move towards the end here, why don't you, Thomas, let our audience know where can they find more information about you and Pulsar Industries so that if they're interested in having conversations about what you do or want to follow your journey, that they can do so.
Thank you, Kreel. Obviously, I'm on LinkedIn. My name is Mark Becker. You can find me. You can find Pulsar Industries North America on LinkedIn. You can look at our websites, pulsar.industries, and our product website, www.pulstrack.com, which is our mobile battery solution. You find all of our contact information there. And if you're around and get this on time, we are at the Intersolar trade show in San Diego from February 18th to the 20th. So come by and we're looking forward to have a chat.
Excellent. And of course, to our audience, we will put those links in the show notes so that you can check down below. To our audience, if you've enjoyed this conversation, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel and share it with colleagues or potential people who would be interested in learning more about Pulsar and what's happening on the US manufacturing side of things. Before we sign off, Thomas, is there any final words you want to give to the audience?
Yes, thanks for tuning in. I think you're exactly on the right channel. Kreel is doing a phenomenal job in bringing really good insights and information to all of you. Hope to meet you in person someday. Come look us up, give us a call. Looking forward. Thank you, Kreel.
Great. Thank you so much, Thomas. And to our audience, thank you so much. This is another episode of Blue Ocean Solutions Podcast. We'll see you on the next one.